Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX A-List. My name is Vineet Malhotra. Well, today we have the pleasure of having someone very special on this broadcast, Anuradha Gupta. Well, she's a serial entrepreneur and the managing director of Armaze Advisory and the CEO of Armaze Incorporated. Of all the ventures she has launched over the years, Vows for Eternity, a global matchmaking firm, remains the project that is closest to her heart. The brand is reimagining premium matchmaking with a modern twist, melding Eastern values with Western dynamism. A mother to young twins, Anuradha is a thought leader in the realm of modern-day relationships. She's currently pursuing the prestigious Executive OPM program at the Harvard Business School. Anuradha, welcome to the show and thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking to us. The first question that of course comes to my mind after reading not only this introduction, but of course all the research that I have done on you. Well, you are of course very passionate about a few things. And how did the idea of Vows for Eternity come about? Let's first start with that and then we'll get to some specifics.
Sure. Well, firstly, Vineet, thanks for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure. Vows for Eternity came about from my own personal journey. I was very commitment phobic till I was 32, and then I thought I'm just going to organically meet somebody, but it didn't happen. And when I started going down that path of finding my life partner, it was very much biodata driven. It seemed like a professional resume, interests, hobbies, all of those things, professional qualifications. And that did not resonate with me. I needed a place where I could talk about myself, my life, my experiences. At 32, I had a number of experiences. And there was no place for that. And I tried to find somebody who could help me. And I didn't find it. So after I got married, I saw a lot of other people go through similar things. You meet somebody you've been talking to, and when you meet them, they look very different. You're talking to somebody, and then they sort of just disappear. And that's when I started Vows for Eternity. So, like you said, for all the things that I've done, it is the closest to my heart because it comes from a very personal experience.
So obviously this is something that you were passionate about because you saw a void, you saw an opportunity, and you saw something, which could be formalized into something which we have as VFE. Well, let's also talk about your marriage and the growth of the company, the VFE, and it seems to have developed concurrently. Did that find insights and learnings from the other? Were they eating off of each other?
They were actually. That's a very interesting question, and I think there is so much that I learned from getting into a marriage, especially for me. The whole thing is this: it's like this bed of roses, and the reality is every relationship now, in hindsight, I can really talk about it. Is that it goes through its ups and downs. So I learned from people as I was talking, because I also have had the pleasure and the privilege of being a part of people's journeys from Vows for Eternity, and I've seen how them or parents' journeys have influenced the children's upbringing and their childhood, and what's the impact that has on their marriages or how they think of marriage.
Well, do you think with the Indian ecosystem and Indian landscape in mind, I'm going off script here, the challenges are quite peculiar because there is this very large cultural hangover that all Indians have when it comes to marriage.
Yes. And I was very guilty of that too. And I have to say, the person who has really changed that perspective for me has been my husband, Anand. Because very early on, there were times I would hear different things from different people and I would react. And then he said to me, Anu, everybody means and wishes us well. But remember, at the end of the day, it's just you and me. And, so I think that stuck in my head.
I read a quote the other day that it's not the destination or the journey that really matters in entrepreneurship, it's the company that matters when it comes to your entrepreneurship. Let's talk about your entrepreneurship journey. How challenging has it been? Was it difficult for you in the beginning? And for an entrepreneur, it's always one challenge or the other, every day when you wake up. But the fact is that the beginning, the teething period, is always that brings about the most number of challenges and the most number of lessons as well. Tell us about that.
So entrepreneurship, I think in a lot of ways was in the blood, I would probably say, for lack of a better word. But so when I started this, my first venture was when I was in college. And after I got married, Vows for Eternity was really my second venture. And there are always challenges because these are more service related. And something like marriage, which is so emotional and so personal, it's totally a different kettle of fish. So always there are challenges. Sometimes, there's a lot of learnings over time. I think some of the key things that I've learned is you're only as good as your team. And also, I think, empowering your team. The other thing, I think, is having a very agile structure. If at work we've been doing things a certain way, the ability to understand and realize when one needs to pivot, that is really important.
Anuradha, the world has drastically changed. It's still changing. We are living in the world of social media and cancel culture. How do you adapt to this change, especially you're in a field that is so people-driven?
I think, I love change. In the last 30 years, I've lived in very many different parts of the world. So change, I think those decisions of, globally, Melbourne, London, LA, wherever else, it really is, I thrive on change. I like change because I think when you're open to change, you're also open to possibilities, you're also open to opportunities. So that's very easy for me.
One question, I'm sure everybody wants to, hear from you. The answer to is, how would you define a perfect marriage? And you believe this is something which actually exists. A lot of people wonder that, especially with, the divorce rate in most of the country and the world, hitting the roof.
So I think there's always the pursuit of perfection. And the reason it's always a pursuit, I think, is I believe there is no such thing as perfection. You're always striving for something, and it's always that little bit out of your reach. But and also, in terms of, is really, and I think the beauty of relationships is that they are flawed, because as human beings, we are flawed. So I struggle with the concept of when two flawed people come together, how can we
expect perfection?
But taboo, when you talk about divorces, you're right. I mean, it's going up, but I think that's also because there's been a cultural shift. I don't think earlier the lower divorce
precipitated by social media.
Yes, to a great extent, you're absolutely right. But also I think there is things like financial independence. Women today, or this generation now, is more financially, than ever before. So earlier, though the divorce rates were significantly less than now, would it be fair to say that they were more happier marriages then? I don't think so.
Right. And rather you juggle, between a number of roles, to a daughter, to a wife, to an entrepreneur. I want to understand from you, last couple of questions before we wrap this up. What is the trajectory for VFE that you envisage? What are your plans? And then we will also talk about, some of the future endeavors that you're invested in. First, tell us, how is VFE planning to change the landscape, that you initiated, that you started?
So, when we started VFE about a decade ago, at that time, social media was a very different place. But, even then, I was talking about things like freezing one's eggs and, things where, or choosing one's own timelines. I've always felt that as people are delaying getting married, there's a lot of pressure on a new marriage, new relationship. So those are things that we need to consider. And there's so much that has changed in the last decade. I've always believed, and I've always spoken about believing that marriage is a space that two people create, right? I mean, if you think of any any sort of team in any company, if both people have the same skill sets, the same strengths to the table, it's a very lopsided team.
Absolutely.
But when you have two people who bring different skill sets to the table,
they complement each other then.
It's an extremely balanced team, and I think that's the beauty of a marriage. So yeah, and so for VFE as well, I think that's really something I've always believed in, and that's the way we are going now with us being in 65 countries, and I think there are a lot of people who believe and who resonate with the way we think. So I think we are on the right track, and we'll continue to do these love stories as we go, hopefully with the blessings of a lot of people. Yeah.
Right. And rather last question before we let you go. Another venture that you're excited about, Two to Tango. Tell us about that.
Two to Tango is again offline. Maybe because I come from I'm a very personal person, so it's very private, and I like it that way. So I think it's really a space which is offline, and it is for somebody who is not yet ready for marriage, who is looking at to date or to be in a serious committed relationship. So it's not anything flippant or casual, but there are a lot of people who, and it's really for people between 30 and 65. Either they've gotten married and it for whatever reason didn't work out, or they've lost a loved one, and marriage is not on the cards for them. But I think we all deserve love and companionship, and I think that's what Two to Tango is about. It's about love and life, love and laughter, and meaningful relationships. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
And rather, it's been a revelation talking to you. Very intuitive, very incisive way of looking at things, and you've put things into perspective like no one else can in this respective field. I appreciate you took out the time, you spoke with us. Thank you so much, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thanks, Vineet. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.